Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You know, yesterday was the spring equinox, right? And so today is the first official day of spring. So I hope that, you know, you celebrated seeing the blossoms, and it rained a little bit, but it's okay. And it's nice to be together, and it's nice that it's spring and all those things. So, my friends, we're going to begin this evening, page 129, Ki Shmera. The way it works with our members of our band is I often ask them if they have favorite melodies they'd really like us to play. And so this one, I'm wondering if you can guess whose suggestion this was. It's beautiful. It's, are you? Good guess, yeah. You get. So, I love it. The rhythm, Ki Yishmera Shabbat El Yishmere Eni Oti Leome Ad Beno Uve Eni. The rhythm is a little different. Just go easy. 1, 2, 3, 4. You guessed that one was a Jeff Swat request. I love it. So, dear friends, we will bring in the lights of Shabbat. We turn to page 120. He and daughter. Please stand. So is there? It's a full service kind of thing. Let's allow the week to kind of ease out through our fingertips and feet. Roll your shoulders a little bit as we make room for Shabbat. Bring in blessings. Bring in peace. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shabbat. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Please smile at the people around you. Please, Kian, say hi. Shabbat Shalom. Move around a little bit. It's nice. So, welcome to Shabbat. And it is a joy for us to be able to come together, exhale a little bit, smile, have smiles returned. It's Shabbat with a Beat, that wonderful monthly service. We will learn new melodies, sing our favorite ones, and sing our way into Shabbat. So tonight, very grateful with Katie and Max and Eddie and Jeff. So this evening, we will bring three important messages together into one theme. First, Torah. The Torah portion this week is Parshat Vayakhel, that focuses on the gathering of the Israelites commanded by Moses to work together in building the Mishkan, the first sanctuary. It emphasizes the collective effort and volunteerism of the entire community. The construction of the Mishkan represents the importance of our people coming together, and it elevates our spiritual lives. And lastly, in this week's Parsha, the Israelites were so generous in bringing things together for the Mishkan that Moses needed to tell them to stop bringing because there was enough. Halavai, we say. Well, halavai. Halavai is an expression that means, yeah, wouldn't that be great, right? Okay. Everyone said halavai. I don't know where it comes from. Rabbi? We don't know, but it means like, it's so good. Okay. Second, this Shabbat is called Shabbat Parah, which is one of the special Shabbatot leading up to Passover. A parah is a cow, but this is not any ordinary cow. It is a parah adumah, a red heifer. In ancient times, the sacred red heifer, mentioned in Numbers chapter 19, was used in the temple to purify people who had become impure or spiritually out of balance. When Shabbat Parah arrives, it brings with it the essence of purity, faith, and a yearning to be renewed. Shabbat Parah is also the early hint that Passover is coming in just a few weeks. Third, we are blessed with having Jennifer Kaufman with us this evening. Her topic will be the World Zionist Congress and the importance of our engagement with that. The World Zionist Congress serves as a platform for Jews around the world to come together and make decisions regarding the future of the Jewish people, particularly in relationship to Israel. Jewish people from diverse backgrounds come together to contribute ideas, resources, and efforts to build a stronger and more unified, God-willing future for the Jewish people. At the World Zionist Congress, delegates vote on key issues. Historically, the World Zionist Congress was the key institution in shaping the modern Jewish identity and the state of Israel. Similarly, Shabbat Parah, what is Parah? Cow, has been observed for centuries, reminding us of the importance of connection with one another and a thirst for renewal. And Parshat Vayakhel is about collaboration, that even with the diversity of all of our opinions, we were successful in building something greater than we could do alone. And that is our tikvah, that is our hope. So the voting opportunity of the World Zionist Congress is one of the ways that we can raise our voices and be heard. We pray that we will collectively sing out our opinions and our prayers. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. Please turn in your handout to the back page.
Well, if you want to sing out, and if you want to be free, be free. 'Cause there's a million things to be, you know that there are. And if you want to live high,
So, dear friends, we turn to page 138, and we welcome the Sabbath bride into this space. This melody is arranged by Joel Eglash. Sorry, one second. In G minor. Let's continue on page 142. We will welcome the Malachi, the angels of peace. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon. Melech Malachi Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Olachem L'Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we continue in our service. Page 144. Oscar, if you could help us. Both of you, actually. Can you come up too? Page 144. Yitkadav, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'yamad Yivrach Yirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayim Uvyom Echon, Uv'chayei Dachol Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, V'zman Kariv, V'yimeru, Amen. Shmei Rabbah Mevorach, Ta'alahu al Me'anaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitramach, V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalav, Shemay Kedusha, Brichu, Le'ela, Mikol Birchata V'shirata, Tush Bechata V'nechemata, Da'amiran Ve'ama, Ve'imeru. Amen. Thank you both very much. We turn to page 146. I'm going to ask you to stand as we kind of get the melody into our head. V'ahavta, page 154. Page 155. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. Continue on page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before we ever stood at Sinai's foot. Together? There's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. So we're going to continue with Michamocha, on page 158. Continue with Hashkivenu, the version by Noah Aronson. So what we do is that we start with the top of 161, Let There Be Love and Understanding, and then we move over to page 160, where it says Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom. Okay? Here we go. continue together on page 162 with Yismachu. We enter Tefillah together, page 164. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehillateh. In English, Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Koneh HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Yavam, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen. Bezrat Sarah, page 168. Atagi bur le'elam Adonai, mechayei metim atarav lehoshia, mashiv haruach umorid hagashem, mechakel chayim bechesed, mechayei metim berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofech cholim, umatir asurim, ומקיים באמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בגבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהלוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We turn to page 176. We take a moment to gather some of the flowers of this week for which we are very grateful. Where we could say yes, where we could say thank you, where it was easy. Please find those moments from your week. They are precious. Page 177, God of goodness. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. Please be seated. I'd like to welcome one of our presidents. That would be Mr. Matt Broad, to come forward and to introduce our speaker. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I have my pocket biography here that I'm reading from. So I'm pleased to introduce Jennifer Kaufman, who has joined us today to discuss the ongoing World Zionist elections, the Reform Movement slate, and why it's so important for us to participate. When she reached out to us and told us, this was sort of all new for me, I learned quite a bit, but it was clear to me that this is something that our congregation needs to be involved in and needs to make sure we turn out votes for. So just in terms of bio, Jennifer is the immediate past chair of the North American Board of the Union for Reform Judaism and a past president of B'nai Israel. She is currently doing the important work of serving as the California lead for the Reform Movement's campaign for the World Zionist Congress. We're lucky to have her today to talk to us all about it. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I printed everything out in very large type, so I don't need to go back and forth in my glasses and looking at you, so I'm hoping this is going to work, but if I have to switch modes, I hope you'll forgive me. It is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Rabbi Nancy. Thank you, Matt and Ella as well, for inviting me. It is wonderful to see old friends here and to be at Beth Shalom again, so thank you so much for having me. I want to talk to you tonight about one of the most important elections that's happening right now, and it's one you may not have even ever heard of. It's the election for the World Zionist Congress. I want to talk to you about what it is and why it is so critically important that we vote, and vote in large numbers. If World Zionist Congress sounds like an organizational name from another era, it's because it is. The very first World Zionist Congress, the WZC, met in 1897 under the leadership of Theodor Herzl. There is a name from the past, right? He wanted to bring Jews together from around the world in what's become known as the Parliament of the Jewish People to establish institutions that would be needed in a future state of Israel. He brought together Zionists from across the political spectrum. There were religious Zionists, there were secular Zionists, there were labor Zionists, there were cultural Zionists, all there to help dream about the state of Israel that was yet to be. One of the things the World Zionist Congress and Herzl did at that point was to establish 3 quasi-national institutions to deal with policy, land, and people. And the Congress continued to meet every 5 years for the realization of a state of Israel. Now, you might think that once the state of Israel was established in 1948, the Congress would have dissolved. All of those national institutions that dealt with setting policies, with buying land for the state, for creating programs like supporting immigrants who are making aliyah, all of those could have simply been absorbed into the new government and disappeared. No more need for any shadow governments of any kind. But the decision was made, a really important decision was made, that Jews in the diaspora should have a voice in what goes on in Israel. We should feel a part of Israel and be a part of Israel and part of Jewish peoplehood. So the Congress continues to meet every 5 years, and this is one of those years. And elections for seats in the Congress are happening now, and those elections go through May 4th. I want to digress just for a minute to give you a little information about the structure of the World Zionist Congress so you understand sort of the big picture of it. The WZC is a parliamentary system. We don't vote for individuals, we vote for slates. And depending on how well a slate does, it gets a proportional number of seats in the Congress. There are about 500 voting delegates in the Congress. It is a big organization. And those seats are divided roughly into thirds, representing the geography of the Jewish population around the world. So Israel gets a third of the seats. Their seats are given to the political parties in Israel in proportion to their seats in the Knesset. The United States, as the second most populous, or first, depending on who you're talking to, gets another third of the seats that are there, and the rest of the world gets the other third of the seats. So when I talk about the World Zionist Congress elections tonight, what I'm talking about are the elections to elect the third of the delegates that come from the United States. So that's all well and good, but why do we care who wins those 152 seats? And I think that this all really boils down to 3 things: money, power, and values. There are 22 slates running for those 152 seats in the United States. Some of them are progressive, some of them are secular, some of them are religious, some of them are ultra-Orthodox. Those 3 different institutions that I mentioned in general terms, the ones focused on policy, land, and people, these elections are going to determine who leads those institutions, who are going to be the deputies of the agencies, who will be the committee chairs, and probably even more importantly, those institutions allocate $1 billion every year. That's billion with a B. So the Congress session is 5 years. So over 5 years, we're talking $5 billion that is going to get allocated to projects and leadership for those institutions during what we all know are really challenging times right now. And we want to ensure that that money is spent to strengthen our values, to strengthen democracy, pluralism, civil rights for all of those living in Israel, women's rights, LGBTQ+ rights, seeing conversions by our rabbis recognized in Israel, seeing our children and grandchildren welcomed into Israel as part of the Jewish community, and seeing flourishing Reform life in communities in Israel. So what are those 3 institutions? What are they, and what do they spend money on, and why does it matter so much who has leadership roles in those institutions? One of those organizations I'm going to touch on just really briefly. That's the World Zionist Organization. That's sort of the umbrella for the other two organizations that I'm going to talk more in depth about. The World Zionist Organization does a lot of work on anti-Semitism. It does a lot of work on connecting world Jewry. Some of you may be familiar with the World Union for Progressive Judaism, which is the reform and progressive movement in everywhere except Israel and the United States, and the WZO supports them. And the policies and resolutions that Rabbi talked about earlier, the World Zionist Organization is the one that works on those policies that the Congress adopts. But I really want to talk about two other national institutions. The first is called Keren Kayemet LiYisrael. It's also referred to as KKL. It's also referred to as Kakal, because I don't think Jewish groups have ever met an organization that they don't love an acronym for, so I'm probably going to be calling it Kakal most of the time tonight. That's the institution that deals with land. Land ownership in Israel is really complicated. Kakal owns about 13% of the land there, and the issues of where land is bought and sold is what comes to Kakal. Because we have had leadership positions in Kakal, we were able to stop proposals to buy land over the Green Line. If we hadn't been there, that wouldn't have happened, would be a very different result. And our leadership has made a difference time and time again. One recent example, there's a memorial for fallen soldiers in East Jerusalem, and it has fallen into disrepair. And a settler group had proposed building an amphitheater where this memorial was. This amphitheater is located in Sheikh Jarrah, which is an Arab neighborhood in East Jerusalem. It is always a hot point and a flash point. Because we had leadership roles in there, we were able to say, we're going to repair the memorial, we are not building an amphitheater there. When there were proposals for construction projects for border communities, there were a number of settler groups that came and said, we think you should be spending that money in the West Bank on all of the settlements. Instead, the Kakal, because of our leadership, money was sent instead to the kibbutzim that were devastated on October 7th, and not to unrecognized settlements in the West Bank. Kakal has done an incredible amount of environmental work over the last years. 5 years ago, the spending on environmental projects was just a couple of $1 million. It's now spending more than $70 million on sustainability and climate initiatives. It is one of the largest environmental and climate organizations in Israel. And again, that is in large part due to the leadership of Reform Jews in leadership positions in Kakal. The other institution I want to talk about is the Jewish Agency for Israel, or JAFI, right, J-A-F-I. That's the people part of the national institutions. They deal with programs in Israel and programs that go between Israel and the diaspora. That's the organization that works so hard on Aliyah and sets up services and programs for new immigrants. It's the agency that sends Israeli counselors to camps. If you have kids or grandkids or you yourself attended Camp Newman, you know all the Israeli counselors that are there, and they are there because of JAFI. Last summer, JAFI also sent Israeli kids who had been displaced from communities in the north and from kibbutzim in the south to come to camps in the United States for some respite. And Camp Newman and our other URJ camps were really honored to be able to host those kids there. One of the things that's so remarkable about having Israeli counselors and Israeli campers at our camps is that for many of them, it's the first time they really are exposed to Reform Judaism. They experience the joy of a Reform Shabbat at camp, and they take those experiences back with them to their communities and families in Israel. JAFI also supports programs for our teens in Israel, our nifty summer programs in Israel. URJ runs a high school semester program, and JAFI helps provide money for that. JAFI provides money for programs at Hebrew Union College, which is the only Reform seminary that there is in Israel. It provides money for leadership programs for young adults in their gap year before they start their military service. But perhaps most importantly, I think, JAFI provides funding for religious streams in Israel. Unlike the United States, there is no separation of church and state. Funding is where it's at, and this is how the Reform movement in Israel gets its funding. If you were in Israel 10 or 15 years ago, you could have counted on less than two hands how many Reform congregations there were. You might have gone to Kol HaNeshama in Jerusalem or Beit Daniel in Tel Aviv. There are now more than 50 Reform congregations in Israel. It is absolutely remarkable. And those communities don't just provide a religious, spiritual home for people, they build community. They expose others to Reform Judaism through projects in their cities and neighborhoods, by having guests attend B'nai Mitzvah at Reform synagogues. One rabbi is actually helping families of soldiers killed during the war to have non-Orthodox military funerals for their children. This has opened an entirely new world for people. The choice no longer is to be secular or Orthodox. You have this new alternative that is there. Jaffe provides 20% of the funding for the Israeli Reform movement. It's how rabbis are paid. It's how synagogues exist there. But it's more than just synagogues. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Israel Religious Action Center. You may have heard of the Religious Action Center that URJ runs here in Washington, D.C., where we go lobby Congress and we have state initiatives for people to come to Sacramento and talk to representatives here. IRAC, because it's an acronym that we love, Israel Religious Action Center, works through litigation. It's a completely different system of how to affect change. They are the group that is fighting for land allocations for our congregations and funding for Reform rabbis. They are the ones that have fought legal battles to ensure that Reform and conservative Jews are recognized under the law of return and eligible for Aliyah. They have ended gender segregation on public transportation, no more women in the back of the bus. They have been fighting to ensure that legally mandated core curriculum is taught in ultra-religious Orthodox schools. They have brought lawsuits against hate groups and leaders who incite violence against Arabs. They recently won a court case to ensure that death benefits are available for same-sex partners of soldiers killed in war. All of this work, this tremendous work that is being done in Jaffe and Kakal is able to happen because the Reform movement today holds leadership roles in these organizations. And by having seats in the World Zionist Congress, by holding leadership positions, we can ensure that $1 billion a year is spent in accordance with our values. It is so critically important that we vote this year. The math for elections is getting harder. The number of slates is growing. In 2020, there were 14 slates on the US ballot. This year, there are 22. Some of these slates are progressive groups that we have worked with in partnership for years. Some of these slates are ultra-Haredi, and they are campaigning very, very hard, using horrifically vitriolic language about Reform Jews. One of these parties, Eretz HaKodesh, was just came on the scene in 2020. They did surprisingly well because I'm sure Rabbi would like to have this happen in this congregation too. If you are speaking from in an Orthodox shul and your Rebbe tells you to go do something, you go follow instructions. They did incredibly well. They were the third largest party in last time around. And they are trying very, very hard to become the #1 party in the US slate this time around. The Reform movement has been first. They were first last time. And we got many more votes than we'd gotten last time. But because there are more slates, we actually wound up with fewer seats than we had last time. So I'm asking you tonight to please vote for the Reform slate in the World Zionist Congress. Our platform is very straightforward. We support a secure, strong, democratic Israel as envisioned in the aspirations expressed in Israel's Declaration of Independence. And here I will put on my glasses so I'll make sure to read this. Israel will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. It will safeguard the holy places of all religions. The Vote Reform slate stands for the recognition, respect, and funding for the Reform movement and other liberal streams of Judaism. We stand for the full equality of all Israeli citizens, including minorities, women, and the LGBTQ+ community. We support governmental and societal initiatives that pursue a lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians through a two-state outcome. So you may be asking, how do I vote? It's easy. You are eligible to vote if you self-identify as Jewish, if you are 18 or older by June 30th, and you have your primary residence in the United States and did not vote in the last Knesset election. If you voted in the last Knesset election, your vote counts as part of the Israeli block of things. There is a $5 charge for voting to cover the costs of running the election. You can vote online or with a paper ballot. The flyer tonight I saw has the website that you can go onto to vote electronically, and I know that there are paper ballots here as well. So you can do this whatever the easiest way is for you. So I'm asking you to please, please vote reform. That's the slate that is number 3 on the ballot. A vote for vote reform is a vote for our values: equality, democracy, pluralism, justice, and peace in Israel, rooted in our love and support for the people and the state of Israel. I want to remind you again, whether you vote or not, $5 billion is going to get spent over the next 5 years, and leadership of critically important institutions are going to be determined. This is our time to make our voices heard, to ensure that our values are front and center. There is simply too much at stake to sit this out. So I want to thank you in advance for voting and for raising your voice, and thank you for encouraging your family and friends to do the same. Shabbat Shalom. Yeah. Sure, Leona? The slates are really interesting. The American Zionist movement, who runs the election, has diversity requirements on the slate. So you have to have a certain percentage women, you have to have a certain number of young people that are on the slate. On the slate for the reform movement, we also have to have the reform movement has a huge slate that is running in the hopes that we will in fact get 152 seats. Wouldn't that be wonderful? We won every single seat that was available. So there are candidates that are there who will be there as delegates. There will be people who will be there as alternates. If you go to, I'm going to give you the name of a website. You can get the names of everybody who's on it. I'm one of the people who are on it. There are several other people from the Sacramento area that are on it and from around the country. The main site for the World Zionist Congress campaign that we're doing is voteforreform.org, and the 4 is a number 4, so it's VOTE, the number 4, reform.org. And if you go on there, you can see everybody who's on the slate. If you go to the azm.org page, you can see who's on all of the slates, all 22 of them. Wonderful. Great. Great. Yeah. Can you, I can't hear you, I'm sorry. How well defined are the slates for us to look at? And I would guess with 22, some of them are probably pretty similar. There are a number of them that are pretty similar. If you go on to azm.org, you can click on the slate, on each slate, and every slate has their platform, and their candidates are listed on there, so you can look at all of them. There are a number of them that are fairly, I'm not even gonna use the word fairly, that are ultra-Haredia, ultra-Orthodox. There are a number of them that are progressive, secular kinds of groups. The conservative movement has a slate. We have our slate. There are shades of gray between some of them, and some of them are 180 degrees from each other. The $5 billion comes from a variety of sources. Some of it comes from JFNA here in the United States. Federation sends money over there. There are a lot of foundations and donor support. Those are the primary places where the $5 billion comes out. The biggest chunk of that comes from the sale of land and leasing land that Cacao does. So when they have their 13% of the land that they rent out, that's a huge source of revenue. If they sell land, that's a huge source of revenue. So that's a big chunk of the $5 billion.
You have like all these slates, which becomes a mishmash of what?
One more time?
How do all these slates interact?
So when the actual Congress happens, in the best of all possible worlds, it's exactly what Rabbi described. You have this wonderful Congress with people proposing ideas, policies, and there's a lot of conversation and a lot of give and take. And there is, that in fact happens. It can also get a little dicey sometimes, and there are times where the lobbying that the reform movement has done has made it possible for all kinds of things to happen that might not have otherwise happened. When there was a resolution at the last Extraordinary Congress, for example, reaffirming the idea of a democratic and Jewish state, and this was when the first rumblings about the judicial overhaul were going on in Israel, and that passed the Congress. There have been resolutions against amending the law of return to limit the number of people who are considered Jewish, and those kinds of conversations go on in the Congress too. So it's a whole range of things.
I know when I was on the Congress a number of years ago, there was actually parading groups who broke in. There was yelling and screaming, and they had to be ushered out from the actual meetings themselves.
Yeah, it can happen.
How much influence does this Congress have on the events in Israel, politics?
So it works in a, and some things it has a very direct influence, right? If you're allocating $1 billion a year, those national institutions, that's an awful lot of influence in terms of what's happening on the ground. If you want to talk about what's happening in terms of democracy, for example, or the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, the Congress doesn't have power over those things, but they fund organizations and they fund people that do have power in those kind of realms. So if you look, for example, at the protests that have been going on in Israel really from before October 7th and that are gearing up again now and happening now, our reform congregations in Israel are there every Saturday night. They are leading a Havdalah service in Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. They are there marching, they are there protesting. And it's the strength, it's sort of a 2 steps removed kind of a thing. Because we are able to financially support the Reform congregations and have them out there and visible, they can encourage their communities to be involved in civic life. There are issues that are simply going to be Knesset has the power to deal with it, and they're going to deal with them, and that's sort of the way it goes. But you're sort of dealing with how do you influence society as a whole and bring about some of the change that you want to see through society. Yeah. Is there a significant non-Jewish vote in this? So, interesting question that you ask. There can't be a significant non-Jewish vote in this because one of the things when you register to vote in the election, you are signing on saying that you self-identify as Jewish. There was a new party that came opened this year, the name of which I am blanking on at the moment, that is very much affiliated with the evangelical Christian groups. And there was a sort of a lot of publicity about should they stay on the ballot or not? Are they in fact a Jewish organization or is it something else? And the AZM ruled that they are a Jewish organization and they can stay on, but they are very transparent, I think, about their relationship with the evangelical Christian community. I wouldn't suggest that they are encouraging those people to be voting and lying about whether they're Jewish or not, but there is some of that. Good. Thank you.
Folks, we can live in the state of oy vey, we can live in the state of apathy, or we can really listen. And I encourage us all to listen and to register and to sing out and to voice how we feel, okay? So I don't have the power of the Rebbe, but I can tell you that this is an opportunity for us. Every 5 years we have this opportunity. So, which brings us to Misha Berach, and look at your handout, please. The reason why I have the names of the composers is that if you like something, you can tell us later, gosh, I really missed that you're not doing whatever, or I like this one. So dear friends, as we prepare for Misha Berach, let's open our hearts and send love to Nicole Dune and Julie Sangregate, Lynn Richards, Bob Haberman, Ralph Bunn, our prayers with Dave Malkin, Joel Ellickman, Tyrone Davis, Michael Vincent, Marie Owen, Diane Steed, Brian Worthy, Johnny Munoz, Julie Henry, Rachel Rodman, Mark Mathit, Beryl Schwartz, Bart Willis, Nir Peled, Carla Gilmore, Mitch Phillips, Jerry Steinke, Meredith Rosenberg, Sandy Lewin. So as we hear some music here, I will go around and see who else we're praying for on the Shabbat. So at this point, I would like to invite Matt and Ella to come forward and share with us the many things that are upcoming. Make sure you really do.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Ella.
I'm Matt.
We're the co-presidents. Thank you to Rabbi Nancy and the CBS House Band, as well as our speaker, Jennifer Kaufman, for leading us through tonight's service.
Thank you to tonight's Oneg sponsor, Barry Broad, who's also my father.
Tomorrow morning, Torah study will continue meeting in person. Join Rabbi Nancy here at 9:30 a.m.
You may have seen this out in the foyer. This Sunday, March 23rd, join us for our third concert series at 4 p.m. There's more information on here about who will be performing, and we're very excited for this one.
Join us next Friday, March 28th, for a special social action Shabbat at 7 p.m. Joining us will be Justin Azevedo from the Sacramento County Library discussing book banning in America.
A couple upcoming events to include. And by the way, flyers for all these events can be found in our foyer. On Sunday, April 13th, CBS will have our annual second night Seder. Registration is open, can be found on our website or more on a flyer in the foyer.
Look out for more information on a special Mother's Day concert featuring the beautiful voices of RSVP.
finally saved the date for our Shalom Fest on Sunday, May 25th. We're always looking for volunteers or support on this committee. This is, by the way, a really fun committee to be on, just saying.
And finally, if you've ever wondered about getting a little bit more involved with the leadership of CBS, please reach out to us. We'd love to start a conversation with you.
Thank you, and
Shabbat
Shabbat Shalom.
So of all the instruments, we love them all. But on Sunday, we will be hearing flute. It will be a beautiful flute concert with John Koza on piano and Alice Lenigan on flute. Principal flute of the Oakland Symphony. So please try to join me. It will be beautiful. At this point, I'd like us to turn to Aleinu, followed by the Kaddish prayer. Page 586. Second paragraph. Aleinu lishabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotze bereshit, shelo asanu kiguye ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegoralenu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, u'mishtachalinu modim, Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim veyoser haaretz umoshav yikaro bashamayim mima'al ushchinatu zo begofei meromim hu Eloheinu ein od emet malkeinu efezulato Kakatuv b'Torato v'yadata hayom v'hashevota elevavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim mima'al ve'al ha'aretz mitachat einod v'ne'emar V'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad u'shmo Please be seated. We remember with much love those who have died within the 11 months. Sylvia Margaret Rochford, Joan Bories. Please help them stand. Yeah? Right. Arthur Choate, Mel Tabak, John Schneider, Vicki Myrtle, Dana Drucker, Ben Jasso, Kent Telfer, Bonnie Tabak, Dr. Gil Simon, Leroy Kessler, Mary Hansen, Chaim Romano, Ginger Jean Leslie Siskin, Sylvia Wexler, Ron Burnham, Sandra Epstein, Judith Forio, Millie Birch, Lisa Schneerson, Cantor George Wald, Marvin Martin, David Gurman, S. George Ezekiel, Ann Eisenberg, Anthony Mixak, Joyce Wheel, Karen Oakley, Edward Edelstein, Sandra Ann Haslett, Penny Clark. And we remember with love the yard sites that fall on this Shabbat: Alice Davis, Carmel Dolenga, Bruce Ehrlich, Robert Fears, Miriam Fogel, Julia Freund, Suki Hoffman, Bernard Levine, Bud Levitt, Nancy Ann Mueller, Susan Ralph Peters, Lita Reed, Joseph Reamer, John Rice, George Rosen, Grace Rosenfeld, Mortimer Sackler, Shirley Saroff, Max Schwartz, Lionel Stein, Selma Trigger, Bernard Wexler, Rose Sisknout. Are there any other recent deaths or yard sites in our community? Zichronam Livracha. May their precious memories always be a blessing. We stand as one people. Page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayei chon u'vyomei chon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Amen. Please be seated. So in your handout, we would love to, we'll conclude with Kiva Moed. Comes from Tehillim, from Psalms 102:14. You shall surely arise and have compassion on Sion. It's time to be gracious to her. The appointed time has come. So after our closing song, we will go into Oneg. Thank you very much. We're very hungry. And please make sure you say hello, of course, to the people you know, but please extend to 3 people that you don't really know so well, okay? Go up and say, hi, my name is, okay? Say yes. Yes.
Al
to all of you. Thank you online. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.